My ex-fiancée secretly slept with her ex every time I left on a work trip for 4 years, so I cancelled the wedding, and one final twist shattered their perfect lie. Okay, I can definitely work with this. Here's a rearranged version of your script with some new words, keeping a similar length and no bold font. That single, unexpected shift shattered their perception. I'm a 26-year-old man, a veteran, currently holding a stable position that occasionally requires me to travel. It's nothing extreme, but I might be away for about a week, perhaps once or twice each month. I had been with my former fiancée, let's call her Sarah, who was 24, for approximately 3 years. When we first started our relationship, everything was wonderful. You know that sensation when you meet someone and think, this is it? That's precisely how I felt about her. Sarah was kind, humorous, and driven in her own unique way. She held a respectable job and had grand aspirations for her future. Frankly, I believed we were an ideal duo. My friends approved of her, my family adored her, and I was proud to introduce her as my girlfriend. Marriage seemed like the natural progression, so last year, I proposed. It wasn't overly elaborate, just the two of us, a pleasant dinner, followed by a stroll beneath the stars, where I knelt. She wept, agreed, and it was likely one of the happiest moments of my life. From that point onward, I was fully committed. I put in extra hours, saved diligently, and began arranging a wedding I hoped she would cherish forever. I'm not wealthy, but I manage my finances carefully. I meticulously budgeted every detail, from the venue to the catering to the decorations. Sarah was completely invested. She relished wedding planning, spending countless hours browsing online inspiration boards, researching gowns, and envisioning our perfect day. But what truly excited her most was the honeymoon. For as long as I had known Sarah, she consistently spoke of a particular country she'd always dreamed of visiting. I won't disclose the exact location to maintain anonymity, but it's one of those breathtaking, exotic destinations featured in travel publications and top 10 bucket list articles. She always referred to it as her once-in-a-lifetime journey. So, I made it a reality. I booked a 10-day honeymoon with premium accommodations, excursions, and everything she could have wished for. It was a significant expense, nearly $7,000 just for the trip, but I wanted it to be flawless for her. She cried when I presented her the booking confirmation, and witnessing her joy made all the effort feel completely worthwhile. Fast forward to about a week ago. Our wedding was set for the 12th, and I felt apprehensive, but the good kind of apprehension. I was eager to marry the woman I loved. Everything appeared to be falling into place. Then, that message arrived. It was a Thursday afternoon, I recall because I had the day off work to finalize some last-minute details. Sarah was showering, and I was seated at the table reviewing vendor contracts for the wedding. Her phone, charging on the counter, vibrated. Normally, I wouldn't pay attention to her phone, I'm not a possessive person, and I trusted her. But this time, the screen illuminated, and I happened to glance over. The message read, "Have you told my name about what you did with her ex-boyfriend? If you don't do it tonight, I will tomorrow." I froze. I reread it, attempting to grasp what I had just seen. My initial thought was, what on earth is this? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but something about the phrasing made my stomach churn. It wasn't a joke, it wasn't some random message. It felt serious. I picked up the phone and examined the sender. It was Sarah's sister, let's call her Emily. Now, Emily and I had always gotten along. She's married to my closest friend, and she's never been one for theatrics. For her to send something like that, I knew it wasn't good. When Sarah emerged from the bathroom, hair still damp and wrapped in a towel, I confronted her. I tried to remain composed at first. I showed her the message and inquired, "What's this about?" Her reaction revealed everything. She looked at the phone, then back at me, and her face became ashen. She attempted a smile and dismissed it, saying something like, "Oh, you know Emily, she's always trying to stir up trouble. Don't worry about it." But I wasn't letting it go. I said, "Sarah, seriously, what is she talking about?" Her expression shifted then, she became defensive. She rolled her eyes and declared, "Fine, you want the truth." I ran into my ex at the bachelorette party. Nothing happened. Emily's just being a expletive. At that moment, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be the kind of person who trusts his fiancée and doesn't overthink things. But something about her delivery didn't feel right. Her tone was too casual, too dismissive. So, I dropped it for the time being. I didn't want to ignite a massive argument right then, but my instincts were screaming that something was amiss. That night, after she fell asleep, I did something I had never done before, I went through her phone. I felt ill as I did it, like I was violating her privacy, but I had to know. I had to know if I was being irrational or if there was something more. And what I discovered shattered me. There were texts, hundreds of them, pictures, videos. The messages extended back years. They began right around the time we became a couple, and they continued every single time I'd gone on a work trip. She had been intimately involved with her ex. There were messages like, "When does he leave again? I miss you. I can't wait to see you tonight." One photograph stopped me cold. It was of them in our bed. At that moment, I felt like I couldn't breathe. It was as if my entire world had been upended. Everything I thought I knew about Sarah, about our relationship, was a fabrication. I transferred all the evidence to my own phone, set it down, and simply sat there in the darkness, trying to process what I had seen. I didn't sleep at all that night. My mind was racing, my heart was pounding. By the time the sun appeared, I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I sat there, observing the sunrise through the window, my thoughts a complete muddle. I hadn't slept a wink. The phone, containing all the evidence, sat on the table before me like a ticking device. Every time I even glanced at it, I felt nauseous anew. Sarah was still asleep in our bed, the very same bed where she and her ex had been together. The notion made me feel like vomiting. I had no idea how I could have been so oblivious, so trusting. I suppose I was the fool who believed love implied loyalty. But the messages, the pictures, I couldn't unsee them. Around 7 in the morning, I heard her begin to stir. I knew I had to get this over with. I walked into the bedroom, stood at the foot of the bed, and simply said, "Wake up." She grumbled slightly, rolled over, and mumbled, "What's wrong?" I held up her phone and stated, "We need to talk, now." That got her attention. She sat up, pushing her hair back from her face and squinting at me. "Why are you holding my phone?" I don't know what it was, but her calm, sleepy voice made something within me snap. I didn't shout, I didn't scream. I just said, "I know everything, Sarah." Her entire expression changed. At first, she tried to feign ignorance. "What are you talking about?" I didn't even bother to respond. I unlocked her phone, brought up one of the more explicit messages, and held it up for her to see. Her face instantly went pale. She didn't speak for a long time, just stared at me with wide eyes, like a startled animal. "Do you have anything to say?" I asked, my voice much calmer than I felt. She blinked a few times, then stammered, Where did you get that?" "Your phone," I said, "the one you didn't think I'd ever examine." "So, how long has this been going on?" At this point, her expression shifted from shock to something I can only describe as defensive. She crossed her arms over her chest and mumbled, "It's not what you think." Those words, "not what you think," infuriated me. I finally lost control. I actually laughed. "Not what I think? Really? So all those messages, all those pictures of you with him, those are fake?" She started crying then. I don't know if they were genuine tears or just part of her attempt to manipulate me, but I wasn't falling for it. Between sobs, she uttered the same expletive, cheaters always say, "It didn't mean anything." "I still love you." "You don't get to say that," I retorted. "You've been sleeping with him for years, Sarah. Years, while I was out working, trying to build a life for us. You were here with him. How can you even look me in the eye and say you love me?" At this point, she started pleading. She got off the bed and grasped my arm. "Please don't do this. We can work through this. It was a mistake, just a stupid mistake." I pulled my arm away from her. "A mistake? A 4-year-long mistake? You've been with him since the beginning of our relationship. Do you have any idea how repulsive this is?" I retrieved her bag from the closet and began tossing her clothes into it. She became frantic, asking me what I was doing, but I didn't answer. I was finished. "You're out of my sight," I said. She wailed. "I don't care," I said, zipping up the bag and thrusting it into her hands. "Go to your sister's house, go to his place, hell, go sleep in your car for all I care. You're not staying here." She started sobbing even harder, but I didn't care. I opened the front door, and she just stood there, crying and looking at me as if I were the antagonist. I told her one last time, "Get out, Sarah. It's over." When she realized I wasn't changing my mind, she finally departed. She took her bag and stormed off, slamming the door shut behind her. I waited until I heard her car start and pull out of the driveway before allowing myself to sit down. I was trembling, physically trembling. My entire body felt drained, as if I had just completed a marathon. I kept thinking, what on earth just happened to my life? After she left, I began to operate on autopilot. I didn't even feel like myself. I called my closest friend, who arrived immediately. I recounted everything, and he simply sat there with me in silence for a while. Finally, he said, "Man, I'm so sorry. I don't even know what to say." I informed him about the wedding, how everything needed to be cancelled. He and his wife immediately began assisting me. They contacted vendors, reached out to guests, and ensured everyone knew the wedding was off. I didn't want to handle it myself. Just hearing the words, "the wedding is cancelled," made my stomach turn. By the end of the day, I had spent hours on the phone cancelling everything: the venue, the photographer, the DJ. Most of the vendors were understanding, though a few gave me trouble about deposits and refunds. I didn't even care about the money anymore, I just wanted it all to be over. The worst part, though, was the honeymoon. That damned trip. Sarah didn't reach out for the first 24 hours, but I knew it wouldn't last. Sure enough, the next morning, she started texting me. The messages began gently: apologies, explanations, promises to make amends. When I ignored her, the tone shifted. She started blaming me, saying things like, "If you hadn't been gone so much for work, maybe I wouldn't have needed him." Needed him? Are you kidding me? I wanted to hurl my phone across the room. Her family and friends started texting me too. She must have concocted some absurd story about me overreacting, because I was suddenly receiving messages claiming I was a jerk for canceling the wedding over one little mistake. One little mistake. That's what they called 4 years of deceit and betrayal. I didn't respond to anyone. I didn't owe any of them an explanation. As far as I was concerned, Sarah and her entire circle could believe whatever they wished. I knew the truth, and that was enough for me. By the time the commotion subsided, I was utterly exhausted. My house felt hollow, my phone was still incessantly buzzing, and my wedding plans were officially defunct. But as I sat there that night, I realized something: at least it was over. Sarah was out of my life, and there was no turning back. After ejecting Sarah, my house felt strangely quiet. For a place that once felt like ours, it now felt as though I was residing in someone else's dwelling. I spent the following day engaging in what you might call damage control. I still had all the wedding decorations crammed into boxes, stacks of RSVP cards that now held no meaning, and a refrigerator full of food I couldn't bear to look at. To distract myself, I began compiling a list of everything that needed to be cancelled or adjusted. It was a grueling process. Each time I had to utter, "Yeah, the wedding isn't happening anymore," it felt like being punched in the gut all over again. Most people were compassionate, and a few of the smaller vendors even issued refunds, bless them. But others were not as understanding, especially regarding deposits. I simply let it go at that point. What were a few thousand more dollars lost? The most agonizing aspect of the entire ordeal, however, was the honeymoon. I had dedicated months to planning that trip, down to the minutest detail. I wanted it to be perfect for Sarah. It was meant to be 10 days of indulgence in a country she had always longed to visit. I had saved for it for nearly a year, meticulously searching for deals to ensure we secured the best flights, the finest hotel, and some truly once-in-a-lifetime excursions. The whole endeavor had cost me close to $7,000, and here's the crucial detail: it was entirely non-refundable. That part stung. I was already out $10,000 for the wedding itself, and now I was facing the prospect of losing another $7,000 for a trip that would never occur. I contacted the travel company to see if there was any possibility of cancellation or at least receiving some form of credit, but the representative flatly informed me that the tickets, hotels, and everything else were non-transferable unless I found someone else to utilize them. I hung up the phone and sat there, gazing at the confirmation email for the trip. It felt like a cruel jest. This was supposed to be a celebration of a new chapter in my life, and now it was just another painful reminder of how utterly my world had collapsed. I considered absorbing the cost and simply letting the trip go, but the thought of wasting all that money sickened me. That's when it dawned on me: I could give the trip to someone else. Initially, I wasn't sure who I would even offer it to. Most of my friends either had children, couldn't take time off work, or didn't travel extensively. Then I thought about my best friend and his wife. Let's call them Mike and Emily. Mike had been my closest companion since high school. He was the person who had always supported me. No matter what. When I was deployed overseas, Mike was the one who checked in on my family and kept them informed. When I returned home and felt like I didn't belong anywhere, he was the one who sat with me on long drives and allowed me to articulate everything. Mike and Emily married young. Emily was actually Sarah's sister, which complicated things slightly, but I trusted her. She was the one who had sent the message that ignited everything in the first place. She had witnessed Sarah's infidelity at the bachelorette party and gave her an opportunity to confess to me. Emily didn't have to do that, but she did, and that carried weight. They had been married for years and had 2 young children, but they had never experienced a true honeymoon. They married quickly after high school when Emily discovered she was pregnant, and they had been working tirelessly ever since. Mike worked long hours, Emily stayed home with the kids, and their idea of a getaway was a picnic at the park on Mike's day off. They deserved something wonderful, and I reasoned that if anyone should receive that trip, it was them. I texted Mike that night, "Hey man, odd question. Can you and Emily take off work for 10 days? I've got a trip you might be interested in." Mike called me a few minutes later, utterly perplexed. "What kind of trip are we talking about?" I briefly explained the situation. The honeymoon was already paid for, Sarah wasn't going, and I didn't want it to be wasted. I told him I wanted him and Emily to take it. At first, Mike tried to decline. "Dude, no, you spent that money. You should go, even if it's just by yourself." I laughed bitterly. "Trust me, the last thing I want is to sit in some romantic honeymoon suite by myself. I just spend the whole time feeling sorry for myself. You and Emily should take it. You guys deserve it." Mike became silent for a second. "Are you sure? This is a massive thing to give up, man." "I'm sure," I said. "It's already paid for. If I don't do something with it, I'm just throwing money away." He told me he'd speak to Emily and called me back 10 minutes later. They were both on the phone. Emily was crying happy tears this time. She kept saying, "Are you serious? This is far too much. We can't accept this." But I insisted. "Consider it my way of expressing gratitude for being there for me. You saved me from marrying someone who didn't deserve me. Take the trip and create some wonderful memories for yourselves." Eventually, they consented. I forwarded them all the details and spent the next few hours on the phone with the hotel and airline to transfer everything into their names. It wasn't simple, but after navigating a few hurdles, it was done. Mike and Emily were officially set to depart for their dream vacation. The following morning, I woke feeling a little better. For the first time in days, it felt like I had done something positive with this mess. Mike sent me a text that made me smile. "You're a good man, brother. We'll make the most of this, I promise." But, of course, the peace didn't last long. I don't know how Sarah discovered the trip, but when she did, she completely lost control. The text started arriving around noon. "How could you do this to me? That's my dream trip. You're a selfish expletive." By the time I received the 3rd or 4th message, she had shifted from anger to desperation. "Please don't let them go. That trip was supposed to be ours. I can't believe you do this to me." I ignored every single one. I was done with her. Then the messages from her friends began to pour in. They called me names, told me I was a jerk, even claimed I was ruining her life. I didn't respond to any of them. What was the point? Sarah had made her choices, and now she was facing the consequences. It didn't take long for the situation to escalate after Sarah found out about the trip. At first, it was just the texts, dozens of them. I ignored every single one, but it was as if she couldn't tolerate not getting a reaction. She oscillated between rage and desperation and back again within hours. The next morning, I awoke to a voicemail from her. Her voice sounded frantic, almost unhinged. "Why are you doing this to me? That's my dream vacation. You're punishing me because you're hurt, but this isn't fair. Don't let them take my trip." Her trip? That phrasing resonated with me. The sheer entitlement in her voice almost made me laugh. Had she forgotten what she had done? Did she believe I was just going to hand her a reward after what she pulled? But it didn't stop there. Sarah must have shared her version of the story with her friends, likely something that painted me as the villain, because they started chiming in too. The group chat with Sarah's friends, which I hadn't even thought to exit yet, suddenly lit up. "Wow, can't believe you do that to Sarah. You're such a jerk. You're heartless. After everything she's been through, you took that away from her. I hope you rot. No wonder she cheated on you." That one hit me harder than I care to admit. I left the group chat without uttering a word and muted my phone. I wasn't about to let a group of people who didn't know the full story get under my skin. But the anger was still simmering inside me. I knew Sarah had distorted things to portray herself as the victim, and I wasn't about to let that stand. Later that day, Emily called me. So Sarah showed up at my house this morning." My stomach dropped. "What? She was banging on the door at like 8 in the morning, screaming for me to tell her where the trip is booked, what flights we're on, everything. She's losing her mind. I groaned. What did you say? I didn't open the door, Emily replied. I just told her through the window that she needed to leave. She started yelling about how I stole the trip from her. Mike called the police when she wouldn't stop. I felt a mixture of relief and embarrassment. On one hand, I was glad Emily didn't let Sarah intimidate her. On the other hand, I couldn't believe Sarah was causing this much chaos over a vacation. Is she gone now? I inquired. Yeah, the cops showed up, and she finally left, Emily said. But listen, you should know something. She was yelling a lot of stuff while she was outside. Stuff like how she never loved you and how she was just using you. I think the neighbors heard everything, and, our doorbell camera recorded it all. I went quiet for a moment. She said that on camera? Yep, Emily confirmed. The whole meltdown is recorded. I'm guessing she didn't realize we had a camera pointed at her. She was screaming about how she only stayed with you for stability and how she thought she'd get a free vacation out of it. Mike said the footage is insane. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I knew Sarah had been using me, obviously, but to hear her admit it aloud while throwing a tantrum on someone else's front porch, that was something else. Send me the footage, I said. The video arrived about an hour later. I watched it in silence, and let me tell you, it was one of the most surreal things I've ever witnessed. There was Sarah, standing on Emily's front porch in sweats and messy hair, shouting like a deranged person. Tell me where the flights are, Emily. That trip was supposed to be mine. I deserve it. He's a loser. He was lucky I even stayed with him. I was using him anyway. You stole my vacation. It was all there, clear as day. I watched her stomp around, wave her arms, and scream about how she never loved me and how it was just supposed to be fun before the police arrived and calmed her down. And the craziest part? Emily's doorbell camera had crystal clear audio. When I finished watching the video, I didn't know whether to laugh or be angry. Here was Sarah, the woman I'd almost married, completely unhinged on someone's front porch because she couldn't tolerate the idea of someone else taking her dream trip. It was pathetic. I didn't plan on sharing the video with anyone, but Emily had other ideas. People need to know who she really is, she said. She's out here telling everyone you're the bad guy while throwing tantrums like this. No, she ended up posting the footage online. I didn't know about it until I started receiving messages later that night. At first, I thought it was just more negativity from Sarah's friends, but when I checked my phone, the messages were different. People were apologizing. Hey man, I'm sorry I believed Sarah. I didn't know she was like that. I just saw the video. Holy crap, you dodged a bullet. I feel so bad for texting you earlier. I had no idea. That meltdown, yikes. It turned out that Sarah's outburst had gone semi-viral. A few local social media groups picked up the video, and people were sharing it with captions like, "This is what entitlement looks like," and "Someone needs to check on this woman." Her own family reached out to me the next day. Her mom called and said, "I don't know what's going on with Sarah, but I'm so sorry. We had no idea she was acting like this." I didn't say much, I wasn't about to rehash everything, but I told her the truth, Sarah cheated, and I called off the wedding. That was it. Her mom sighed. We'll talk to her. She needs help. The final straw, though, was Sarah's ex showing up at my house. It was late, around midnight, when I heard someone pounding on my door. I peered through the peephole and saw him standing there, clearly intoxicated, swaying slightly and muttering to himself. I opened the door just enough to speak to him. "What the hell do you want?" He pointed a finger at me and slurred, "You ruined her life, man. You think you're a big man now, huh?" I kept the door half closed. "Get off my property." But he didn't. He tried to push his way inside, mumbling about how I stole his girl's trip and how I was going to pay for it. I shoved him back hard enough to make him stumble. I wasn't about to let some drunk, expletive, break into my house. I called the police immediately. By the time they arrived, I had restrained him, not harmed him, just kept him from moving until they could take over. He ended up getting arrested for trespassing, attempted breaking and entering, and violating the restraining order I'd already filed against him earlier that week. By the time the dust settled, Sarah had managed to estrange almost everyone in her life. She lost friends, strained her relationship with her family, and now her ex was in legal trouble. Meanwhile, Mike and Emily were preparing to depart for the dream trip that Sarah believed belonged to her. I won't lie, I felt a small sense of satisfaction knowing karma had finally caught up to her. The days following Sarah's outburst felt oddly serene. It was as if a storm had finally passed, and all I was left with was the aftermath to clear. My phone stopped vibrating with hostile messages, and for the first time in what felt like weeks, I could genuinely breathe. Sarah had finally gone silent, and I wasn't about to object. I still had much to contend with, though. First, there was the house. I couldn't bear the thought of being surrounded by all these reminders of her, our photographs, her favorite coffee mug, even the silly little throw blanket she purchased for aesthetic purposes. It was as if my entire living space was contaminated. So, I began a cleansing. I spent an entire Saturday systematically going through the house, room by room. Every picture of us, gone. Her clothes and leftover toiletries in the bathroom, bagged up and left outside. I even discarded the bedding because, honestly, I couldn't look at it without experiencing flashbacks to the screenshots of her and her ex. A few days later, I received an unexpected call from Sarah's mother. I considered ignoring it, but curiosity prevailed. I answered, and she immediately began apologizing. "I don't know what's wrong with Sarah," she said. "I didn't raise her to act like this." I wasn't sure how to respond, so I simply stated, "It's not your fault. People make their own choices." She sighed. "She's been a wreck ever since everything happened. She lost her job, apparently, her boss saw the meltdown video online, and most of her friends have distanced themselves." That surprised me. She lost her job? Yeah, her mom admitted. She's staying with a cousin right now, trying to figure things out. I didn't feel sorry for her, but I also didn't feel good about it. I suppose I just felt neutral. She had made her choices, and now she was living with the repercussions. Anyway, her mom continued, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything she put you through. You didn't deserve that." "Thanks," I said, and I meant it. "I appreciate you saying that." It was a brief call, but it provided me with a strange sense of closure. Sarah's life was unraveling, but it was no longer my concern. I had moved on, and that was all that truly mattered. The last piece of the puzzle was myself. I realized I had expended so much energy dealing with Sarah's turmoil that I hadn't truly considered what I needed to do to heal. A week later, Mike and Emily returned from their trip. They looked happier and more relaxed than I had ever seen them. Emily embraced me as soon as she saw me and said, "That trip was the best thing that ever happened to us. You have no idea how much we needed it." Mike handed me a small keepsake, a carved wooden figure from one of the local markets, and said, "Consider this good luck for the next chapter." "Next chapter?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, clapping me on the back. "The part where you move on and start building a life you actually desire." I looked at the little figure in my hand and smiled. Maybe he was right. That night, I sat alone in my quiet, newly organized house and realized something. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't angry either. I was just free. Sarah was out of my life, her negativity no longer burdening me, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could do whatever I wanted. It wasn't the life I had planned, but perhaps it was the life I needed.